Solo on the beat. Solo. Solo on the beat. Solo.
Hey everyone, welcome to another session of Global Hack Week. You are here with Jocelyn, myself, for another super cool technical stream for Beginners Week. So today we're basically going to be seeing how to make your very first API request. So we're seeing a lot of activity on the chat right now. Great. So yeah, it is always important to check in to our live streams as you are basically getting points by signing in, which means that by each event that you assist, and the more points that you gather, then you will have more opportunities to earn swag, which is pretty cool MLH swag. So this technical stream has a duration of 2 hours. So the first minutes, basically like 40-ish minutes, we will be seeing like technical explanation with a super cool slides deck, to understand like the topics. Usually I just start like coding off after, like 5 minutes of brief explanation. But as I will be trying to be super clear for everyone who is new to coding or new to, an API, to make sure like they actually understand what we're doing. And the last minutes, we will use them to start our cool project. So this is a two-part stream. Today we will be having the first part, and tomorrow we will be having our second part. I will share with you the details by the end of the stream in case that you like this one and you want to continue the project that we started building on this stream. We will get into that. So yeah, hello. Um, yeah, so as I mentioned, we're going to start, getting to see like some of what an API is. And don't worry if you haven't heard this word before, or if you just are curious about what to do in here, or you kind of have like an idea of what is an API, but you're not sure like where to use it or how to even like access to one. Don't worry, I got you, and we will be seeing that today. So let's get started. And always remember that if you have like any questions about what I'm doing or anything that I'm explaining like while I'm talking, like don't worry, you can always like pop in your messages on the chat and I will answer them as soon as I see them. Perfect. So we're going to start by seeing a quick presentation about what are APIs. So I'm seeing here a question saying, do we need to download anything or set up anything on our laptop for the project? For this first part of the live stream, you won't need anything, as I will be doing everything you need to download. I will be doing it like with you while I'm on the live stream. We will be using several websites, and these websites are like you just sign up and you get access to the tool. So don't worry, I will be doing that with you too. And as for the coding part, we have different alternatives. You can download Visual Studio Code. I will also be explaining how to do that like real quick in case you don't know what VS Code is. But that will be in the last minutes of the stream, because tomorrow we will actually use it like so much more than today. Great question. Yeah, I'm just going to change this so you can see like a bit more bigger. Great. So, as I already mentioned, I'm Jocelyn, and I'm a coach here at Major League Hacking. I'm actually based in Mexico, so I'm Mexican, yeah. And I'm a sophomore at a university called Tecnológico de Monterrey. Some fun facts about me is that I love salsa dancing, which is pretty cool. I like to do that on my free time. And I have like I'm a very huge fan of Minecraft bee plushies, which are really cool. And I have like a huge collection of like bee plushies on my room, which is very nice. And if you ever want to talk to me, you can ask me about mechanical keyboards, robotics, or neurotech. Any of these topics will get me started talking a lot. That is something that I really enjoy. Yeah. So brief recap of what are we doing today, because I always like to tell hackers like at the beginning of the stream, like what to expect during the whole duration of this workshop. So basically we're going to understand what is an API, explaining like very easy concepts that I prepared for you today to see. And then we will actually get to understand like how to use an API, like where can I access an API, where are like some examples that I can handle for APIs. And at the very end, we're going to start coding our very first API request using several platforms. We will use Postman for more experienced hackers who know what Postman is. In case you haven't heard about what Postman is, I will explain it to you. So don't worry. And at the end, we will use the request library from Python to execute our scripts command. Yeah, and my goal here today is that after this session, you will actually know how to connect all the services of your hackathon project or application very easily. So perhaps by the end of this hackathon, by the end of this stream, you will know like what is an API and very like specific details about like how it internally works and not just like the overlay stuff, like get deep into the topic. So we're seeing some questions in here. What did I miss? You haven't missed anything. I was just actually like sharing screen and letting everyone know that we will be making our very first API request. Oh, okay, yeah, we're just getting started. That's right. Yeah, that's true. I'm so sorry for that. And thank you for actually letting me know about the music being kind of loud. I thought I had shut that down, but apparently I didn't. So it should be good there. You shouldn't be listening to the music anymore. Perfect. Hey, hey. Does my computer need any specific specs for optimal performance? Not at all. Don't worry, you don't need anything heavy to execute the things that we will be doing today. They are super simple and you don't need, any extra computational power stuff. Yeah, don't worry. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we will be using Postman today. Don't worry if you haven't heard what Postman is. I will explain it in a bit. Great. So now that we know what we'll be doing today, we're going to start by the actual definition, like dictionary definition of what an API is. So here is the meaning of the letters. As you can see, API, which is application programming interface. So before I go deeper about what an API is, I would like to know like what you actually know about this topic, or what do you think this means to you in terms of um programming stuff. Yeah, so let me know on the chat and I will be seeing through your comments in a while. Thank you. Yeah, I actually put a lot of effort on my slides because when I began like coding and I saw like very complex, information that always got me like really confused. So I always try to make my slides like as easier as possible. So is API similar to graphic user interface? Not really. It's a tool, internal tool, basically. You will learn in a second what I mean by this. So API is basically a software intermediary that allows two applications to talk to each other. So imagine we have like application A and application B, and we want to connect them through something on the middle that actually makes them like talk to one another. Great. So we are seeing some comments. Just know that we need API keys to do something. No, you will not be needing any API keys today. So yeah, don't worry about that. API is a place which helps you call some code. That is partially correct. Yeah, it will help us, connect different places of code in a sort of thing. But yeah, that's correct. Okay, so this is a very, very visual example about what an API is. And before going through like super technical concepts, I would like to explain like this fun example. So let's imagine that our API is this waiter that like gets you introduced into a restaurant and takes your order. So let's imagine that our API is Linguini from Ratatouille. And let's imagine that Ego, the like super judgy customer, is our application. So Ego on this example will be our app. And then we have the kitchen, which is Remy from Ratatouille. And this will be our server. So the server is where all the information goes and it responds to, both the waiter and the customer. Okay, so let's imagine that Ego arrives to a restaurant and he's like, okay, I want to order like some pizza and some spaghetti. So he just raises his hand and talks to the waiter and says like, okay, Linguini, I want spaghetti and I want some pizza. So the waiter takes down like the order from Ego and sends it back to the kitchen, and Remy starts preparing the food. So once the kitchen is ready with the food, it will say like, okay, Linguini, the food is ready. So go ahead and give it back to our customer. So Linguini will go with Remy and then Linguini will go with Ego. Okay, we're seeing some questions over here. Is just on school API will be intermediary for increasing a counter for just okay, that's that's a nice example. Yeah, Ratatouille the reference. I like this example. I actually was searching like for these images while I was like working, and someone like saw what I was doing, like copy pasting the images from Ratatouille. And my friend was like, okay, why are you searching like Ratatouille images for your MLH work? And I was like, you have to see this stream to actually understand why I'll be using like these images. But yeah. Yeah, so you can actually see the API as a middleman or middlewoman. That's something that's actually nice reference. Suppose there is an app that fetches data from my SQL database. So do we need an API in between there too? I wouldn't say so directly. I mean, you definitely can, but my SQL, you can actually connect like directly to what you're doing through PHP. But you also would need, like, if you want to scale that bigger, you will definitely need an API in PHP, sadly. Yeah, in PHP to connect to your MySQL database. So if the database is the app's local database, and okay, if the database is the app's local database and not another app's database, I don't think you need an API. Oh, so this person over here was responding to the question. Great, thank you for the collaboration. Do we need API for cybersecurity? Depends on the use case. Yeah, depends on the use case. And yeah, no worries. So I think we're clear with example over here that our API is Linguini, which is a waiter that communicates both with our customer and the kitchen. So it's a two-way, communication process where the API can, both connect with customer and kitchen, which means that, all three parts can communicate with each other. Perfect. So I found this image online, which is actually, pretty. I like it a lot because I love bees. And when I saw this, I was, okay, this is very cute. And I have to show it on the live stream. And you can actually go ahead and, read the different steps that are presented over here. So the first one says, the bee over here says, hey, we need more nectar, which is data, to make our honey, which is our application. And then an API endpoint is generated, which is this one. Don't worry if you don't understand like this weird thingy over here. I will explain it in a second. And then the worker bees validate the request. Then they call the server. The server is the flower because a flower has like a lot of nectar, which means like a lot of data. So the helper bee will go back and say, okay, I have my nectar ready, and go back to the honey comb. Yeah. To deliver the data, which is the pollen or nectar. Yeah, so how it basically works is that we need a request. So someone needs to request the information that we want, and then we also want to receive. So second step will be receive, and what we will be receiving is the data that we requested from a server that has like all of the information that we need. And finally, we will be getting our response. So our response is the one that will be given to our client, which in this case is a place where the bees live. Thank you. Yeah, this is very cute. I love bee plushies. I actually have one that were crochet over here. Yeah, they're very cute. Um, yeah, it's very fun. Thank you. So let's go ahead. And okay, this is a bit more technical, but don't worry if you don't understand everything that is on this slide. We will actually get to the practice of this in a while, so don't worry. Um, when you search API online, you will see that there is something like REST API or just like regular API. And even if they kind of do like the similar thing, they're not exactly the same. So for this live stream, we will be using a REST API example. And we can basically see here like our client, which is, the customer or like the honeycomb. And then the API will be, the thing that actually connects to our server to return our response. So if you can see, this is like a two-way process where we request and we get response. We request and we get response. This is what we will be doing today, our REST API. And as for the streaming API, I'm not going to get a lot of into details, but this is like a much more personalized API where you can like send a request and you can get like multiple events triggers depending on like what you want that API to do. So for REST API, we have to establish connection each and every time. Yep, that's totally correct. And I will actually show like a comparison table in case you are like super technical and you want to see like the actual differences between them. So as we can see, connection is closed after response is received. So every time like I get a response of data, the connection with the API is closed and I can no longer like keep making requests to that API. For API URL is necessary. Um, kind of that is called an API endpoint, which we will be seeing in a very little while. Yeah. Um yeah. So this is a nice table that we have in here. So we get like client server architecture, which is what we saw on the example of Remy and Ratatouille and that stuff. And for the REST API, we have different features. Someone in here is asking what those stateless and stateful means. So basically, as we are seeing here, stateless means that it can be cacheable, and cache is basically like a very, tiny bit of memory that is stored like on some part of memory that you can use multiple times to make it like much more faster to access like like that piece of information. So REST API is like MLH sending us the stickers. Okay, I don't know if I should laugh about that, but oh, okay. Streaming API, MLH notifications. Yeah, in a such sort of way, because if we remember like the image that was before, we can see that for the streaming API, you actually need to trigger someone and you can keep sending things like, for example, notifications, and the connection is like open every time. So cache is like history. No, I wouldn't say that cache is like history. So there's actually, I'm going to get kind of technical on this stuff because this is about like computer architecture. But let's imagine that cache is like a really tiny like bit of a space stored in like your computer, for example. And let's imagine that every time like you want to search for something, instead of like going through the regular memory, which is, for example, the ROM or the RAM of your computer, you have like this really tiny space of cache in your computer architecture where the computer can access that tiny bit of information, and using cache makes like this process much more faster. So it's much more faster like to access cache instead of like going to the regular memory. But disadvantage is that it is really small, so not like big information can fit in there. Yeah, this is a very next example. So cache is like a sticky note on our desk. It's like very tiny, and you can access it like really quick. So you can access frequent search very quickly. Yep, that's totally right. Great. So let's go to the next one. Um, okay, so now getting a little bit more technical on what is a REST API, or like an API. So we have our client. We all know what a client is at this point. So our client is our application, right? And then we're going to use different types of HTTP methods, which I will explain in a while. And then those HTTP methods will be aided by a URL. As someone mentioned earlier, that and asked that is if an API is like a URL. And I say kind of because it is a URL accompanied by an HTTP method. So after this endpoint is drafted, it goes into the server to request like the information, and then goes back to our client. So this information is usually in the format of a JSON object. um yeah, and to give you some context of what JSON is, because I will forget to explain this. So a JSON is basically a sort of like laying down information in a format. You can call it like if it is a format of writing data, and its format is basically that you have a key. So our key in this case is survey ID, score, message, response ID, and it has values, and the values are like 1, 2, 3, 9, amaze, and 4. So a JSON is an object that is composed by a key and a value. That's all you have to know about JSON structure. So once you have that, the information goes back to our client, and we can definitely use that, like to show how many users that are active, or perhaps like display some information on tables, or maybe like to bring back weather predictions, anything possibly of data that you could imagine. Yeah, gave me that analogy a while back. Yeah, very cool, very cool. Great. Um, so now getting a little bit more into depth about how to like draft an API endpoint. So all of this is our endpoint, which is our URL. And remember, I said that every API request and endpoint has like an HTTP method. I will explain that in a second. And then we have our request parameters, and then we have our API key. So there's different elements over here, which totally like vary depending on API to API. So there are like tons of APIs out there that are like used for different various reasons, and each API has like its own documentation platform. So before you actually go and use like an API, you want to check like the documentation to see how they actually like structure this different section. So oh, yeah, I'm sorry. She is barking a lot, and I really want to close the door, but then like my internet will get kind of laggy. So yeah, I'm so sorry for that. So anything after A is parameters. Where is the A? I don't see the A. Huh. I don't know where is the A. So anything after A is parameter. parameters. So the parameters are the things that are in red, which are like extra query filters that you can add to make it like your search better. This will make sense when we actually test it, so don't worry for now. Is the only way for an app to retrieve data from a server is through an API? Are there any other ways? Um, so as for yeah, there are definitely other ways which would make it be like offline, because to make a request to an API, you actually need like an internet connection, because this URL is hosted on the web. So that connection will be through internet. So to make your API request, you will need like internet connection, which sometimes is not like the best if we are dealing with other kinds of projects. Like for example, in my case, it has happened that I have to work with robotics projects, and my robot sometimes cannot be connected through the internet. So in order to connect to our robot, we use different methods to actually access the server, which are definitely not APIs. Which is like, for example, you can download like the models that you can be using, or you can download like the local databases on your project, so you don't have to actually access the information through an internet like endpoint. But yeah, a question mark. Oh yeah. So after the question mark, you include like all of your query parameters that you want in order to customize your endpoint. So I'm assuming in here for the name of the endpoint that this request is basically getting news from the United States country and news that are of the category science. So this endpoint will give us information, news information about the United States that are focused on science. So these request parameters are basically making like my search much more efficient, because I want something more specific. So I'm using like this, the question mark and then my query parameters. Yeah. Are API keys part of URL when we fetch some data from the server? I mean, sometimes yes, sometimes no. This example is not very good, because if you actually include like your API key on the URL of your endpoint, that is kind of insecure and will be more propense like to, like data leaks. So you don't want to include your API key on the endpoint. And the way we usually do this is that we store the API key like in the form of a token that I will explain when we are making the examples. Yeah. So how many times can we use this API? If you mean the one that I'm sharing on screen, I actually have no idea, because this is like a picture from the internet. So this is not the API that we will be using. Great. So give me a second so I can go close my door so you don't get like very distracted with my dog. Yep. Great. So I'm back. Hopefully, I close my door, so I hope it doesn't get very laggy. In case it does, feel free to uh say it on the chat so I'm aware. So we have so yeah. That made me laugh. Okay. So which all software can be used to make API? Okay, perfect. We will see that in a second. Yeah. Um, if API uses authentication, then API key is used. Yeah, thank you for answering that question. Perfect. Great, thank you. So let's fast forward. So here is an example of the different HTTP methods that I mentioned before. So remember that I told you that I will get into what an HTTP method is. So here is basically the explanation. So before our URL, we need to specify the type of HTTP method that we will be using to access that information. And you can see these as kind of like crude operations if you are a bit more familiar with database management. So we have different types. In this example, we see get, which is the most basic one. And this, for example, just basically brings information back. On this case, we are bringing back lists of all the books that are in the database. Then we have the delete one, which, as you can imagine, it deletes a specific book based on their ID. Remember that this is like a specific example. This doesn't mean that an API is always like about books. It is just an example. And these are the methods that are actually used on different APIs. Yeah. So we get post. This one is to insert information, to insert new information into our server. Then we had put, and this one is to update something. So in case you made a mistake and you want to update something, so this one is the one that you want to do. So why post doesn't have a parameter? So in this case, yeah, I mean, the great question. This should have a parameter, but I'm assuming that the parameter is being sent through a body, which is already like implied on the HTTP request. So maybe that's why it's not like hard coded on the endpoint, because there are different ways that you can insert information, which we will be seeing on the examples in a while. So actually, this API is the one that we will be using. So our API will be about books because it is a super simple API to use. Yeah, that's totally correct. Thank you for answering. Yeah, so the post on this case for this API is storing the information as a JSON. So you actually are like uploading that information in that format. Great. I'm very glad to see a lot of collaboration in the chat. That makes me really, really happy. Yeah, so these are some examples. Remember these methods because we will be using them in a while. So we have get, delete, post, and put. And they are, I think there are more. Yeah. But these are basically the ones that we use for everything. Like if you know these ones, you should be good to go. Great. So this is a tool that we will be using, which is called Postman. So right now I'm going to stop screen sharing and we will go ahead and get our hands on into this. Yeah, into testing our API requests. So for this, we will be using the Simple Books API to get started, which is a beginner's API, to drafting our very first API requests. And we will go through the documentation so you can understand like the information that is over there. Just keep in mind that all of the documentation for each API is kind of different. So yeah. Yeah, thank you for answering the question about what rest means. That's very super helpful. Or like a question, where did you get your chair from? So I literally ordered it from Amazon. That was kind of crazy like a while ago, and it was pretty cheap actually. So yeah, it is from Amazon. Perfect. I'm kind of cold right now. I'm not used to cold weather, but it's cold right now. Okay, so I will log in into an incognito tab so I can create the account like from scratch. So we will type in Postman. So Postman is basically a tool on the web, or you can also download it as an application that developers use to test their APIs. So there are several tools where you can test your APIs online, but Postman is kind of like the standard because it has plenty of tools for developers to test their APIs. So let's start with this one. Yeah, I actually like Brave because it's much more secure, and I don't get like these crazy personalized apps ads when like rather than when I'm using like Google Chrome or things like that. And it keeps things like so much more safer. Yeah. So once you're here, I will send this link on the chat in case someone like just wants to have it as a reference, which is a tool that we will be using. And you're going to click on sign up for free. Yeah. And then you don't need to write like your work email. It can be like any email that you want. Go ahead and type a username and then a password. And then you can also like sign up with Google or other like different forms. Yeah, I already have an account, so I'll give you a few moments while you start creating your accounts. And yep, I'll start doing it with mine. Yeah, okay. So I will access this um through my regular browser, so I don't have to type like my email and all of that. So Postman. Oh, I think it logged in like super automatically. Okay, I like this. Um, so for the ones that are signing up or signing in, please let me know in the chat if you are seeing the same screen that I'm seeing, so I can like start explaining from this, and you actually know like where to click and where to do things. And I'm going to make my screen bigger because I think it's not like very visible for the ones that don't have like huge screens and or are like in mobile devices and things like that. Okay, so you are seeing a different screen. All right. Okay. What to fill out in roles? If you mean like roles like inside a company, just like select anything that kind of looks like what you do in real life. Yeah. Um so that's weird that you are not seeing this. I don't have the exact same screen either. Okay, then let's work this out. Let me see if I can sign out. Okay. Um okay. Let's see. I think it will direct me through the same screen that we were before. That's kind of sad. Worst case scenario, I am in a tab labeled overview. Okay, let's see if I can get into that tab. Just my internet is kind of slow right now, as you can see. Um, let's see. Okay, overview. Yeah, that might be because it's the first time that you are using Postman, but that's weird because um I logged in with this account that I never use for Postman, so that's weird. Mm, okay, so I will send you like direct link that is home. Oh yeah, I think someone actually sent it. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, that's the page that you all want to be in. This is free. Yep. Thank you for answering. Yeah, it's 100% free. Yeah. I don't know if it will work if I send you like this URL on the chat and you can see like the very same screen that I'm seeing. Um but yeah, new request. Let's see. Okay. So I will send you this link, or is everyone seeing this after you clicked in here into making like your very first HTTP request? Okay, it's slow now. So get started and then your request. And I will send this in case. Yeah, definitely. I think that's because I closed the screen. I think that's so much more better. Okay. Perfect. So is everyone seeing a screen similar to this? If not, don't worry. We will be using an external public link for the meanwhile, and then you will actually have to log in like in there. Okay, so we have two, 3 persons that said yes. So I will feel free to go ahead and start explaining like basic tools that you will find in here before actually going through the API that we will be using. Okay, thank you very much for confirmation. Thanks. Okay, so as you can see in here, I clicked on creating like a new HTTP request. As we can see in here, that there's like a little icon that says request. So I will zoom in even more because I can make that. Okay, perfect. So we are seeing a lot of things right now. We don't necessarily have to understand everything. I'm just going to give you the quick things that you need to understand to get going. So in here, as we saw before, are the different HTTP methods that we will be using. So we learn about get, we learn about post, put, and delete, and there are some others over here. Then in here, we will be writing our endpoint. So this could be like, I don't know, like endpoint and then slash get books. It could be something like this, or it could be something different. Endpoints are like different URLs that you can use. So this could be like whatever. And then over here, we have different tabs. So we have our parameters that we need. Then we have authorization. So this tab for authorization is actually pretty important because most APIs require you like to use either like an API key or like a bearer token or an access token. And you actually want to select like the type of authentication that your API will be using. And don't worry if you don't understand like all of this. When you go through the API documentation, you will actually see like on the docs super specified that like, oh, for example, the books API uses like a bearer token. So you will know that you have to select like bearer token and then copy paste like the your secret token over here. And then that should be like super good to go. I will leave it with no out. And then we have the headers. In this case, it's like a specific information that you want to send. So these are like some examples, like for example, host, user agent, and some others over there. We will be seeing this with an example further on. And then we have the body. As you can see, and you remember that someone asked like why the post method didn't have like any query parameters. Well, that's probably because it was actually located like in our body. So on the body, you write like the information that you want to publish into your database or into your server. The information that you actually want to send. And it is usually like in the form of a JSON, as you can see in here. If you select raw and then you select JSON, you should be good to go, to write like a JSON format thing over here. So yeah, and as you remember, we have like key, and we also have values. That is in parentheses too. I'm sorry. Yeah. So your information will be like in this format. Like, I don't know. Let's imagine that I want to send like a book, and the book will be called like Lord of the Rings. So that's just like an example. So now I will be sending like this information into the server in JSON format. Great. Then we have a scripts. This is in case you want to make like things like more automatized, but we will not be getting into that today, as it is a bit more complex. And then settings, this is like super extra, so don't worry. And then over here you can save like your endpoint. Like in case I have like more endpoints and I want to save it, then I just click on save. And to send it, you just click, well, on send. Okay, so I think I talked enough about this. So let's go ahead and get started with our examples. So for this, I will search books API. Okay, I think it's this one. Great. Let's see, and I will share this link with you in a second. Let me just get through the official documentation so I can actually share that one with you, which is like the cool one. Here we go. Demo documentation. Great. So is this one. Great. So let me share this link. I hope it's not too long. Okay, it's kind of too long. Okay. Well, I will send a link and tell me if you can access it, please. Like if you can see what I'm seeing on screen. What is GraphQL? I actually have no idea what is that, but I'm assuming that it's a different format of sending information, because it was listed on the options for the body. So that must be it. Great. So everyone can see it. Perfect. So when you want to use an API, you will be seeing like different things over here. If I click the link, will I get viruses or something? No, you would definitely don't. This is a super public link that is out there. So don't worry about that. You are safe. Great. So when you are actually using like a new API, for example, the Simple Books API, the documentation should look something similar to this. And if we can see in here, it says authorization bearer token. So we know that this API will use an authorization of type bearer token. So token. Then we have our first API endpoint. So the first one is of type get, and it is called get status. And this is the endpoint that we will be using to get the status of our API. So that's the first one. Then we have our second one that is get, and it's get list of books. So this will give me back a list of books in the format of JSON. Great. So let's go ahead and try on some of this. So if you can see over here on the left, you will see like different folders. So go ahead and click on the one that is called status. Click on that, and you should be directed to the page that we were seeing earlier, like on your personal accounts. And we can see that the method is set to get. And then we have this weird thing over here that says base URL. So what does that mean? So to make your endpoint look, cleaner, when other people like want to use that same endpoint. So let's imagine that we're in like a huge organization and a lot of people use the same API that you do. So you want to organize your endpoint as clean as possible. And I don't want to be writing like this super long thing on my bar. So to replace that, we basically create like a variable. In this case, the variable is called base URL that basically stores this value. And we just write like super clean, just the final like endpoint request, which is slash status. Okay, that's a bit bigger. Perfect. So how to create the base URL? Yeah, that's a good question. I will make an example over here. And so I will bring back this URL. Oh, I want to, here we go. So I'm going to copy paste, like, for example, the URL that I want to use. And if I'm not wrong, if we paste it over here, let's imagine that okay. I want to save it on a new collection. I'm call it test MLH Global Hack Week. Create. Great. So if we do this, it should be, if you select everything and then you right click, it would say something like set as variable. So if you click on that, then you can like either search for a variable that already exists or like create a new variable. So if I click on set as new variable, I will type like, for example, base URL, and then I will see like the value over here that in this case is my endpoint. And then the scope is basically like in which workspace you are working. So we have different examples, like for example, if I only wanted to be part of this collection, which is a test MLH Global Hack Week, then I will select collection. And if I want to make it like global, so for everyone, then I will set it as global. In my case, I will set it as collection, as this variable is like super specific to this collection. So I will just select collection and then set variable. And we are good. Great. So thank you for that question. That's insightful. Great. So going back to the status thing. Great. So then you can just click on send, and over here you should be seeing the response on the console from Postman. And if you can see, the response is given as JSON format, and we are seeing like the status is okay. Please reshare the link to mark the attendance. Yeah, don't worry. I got you. Let me just click on this super quick and share it with you. Perfect. Yeah, so after you hit on send, you should be seeing the status of our API. So for my case, and I hope that for everyone, the status should be like okay, that it is running. Okay, so someone is saying, I got JSON message, welcome to the Simple Books API. So I might be assuming that that is because it is the first time that you use the API. As this is not my first time making requests to the API, because I was trying it on a bit earlier from the stream to check that everyone was like working correctly. It appears that I'm already like a kind of like logged in user. So don't worry. It's good. Just a question. Did you get like in the responses there's something called like access token or something of that sort? And if no, like don't worry, we will be generating that in a while. I got the status okay. Okay, perfect. Then that should be general. I did not get that JSON message and this is my first time. Okay, then this hacker over here might be using a different endpoint. Don't worry, don't worry. We are just testing things right now. We are not actually like doing our project right now, so don't worry. Great. So let's try on a different endpoint. Let's go and click on get list of books. Let's see. So we have our base URL again, and then our personalized endpoint is books. So let's, ooh, okay, this is super, super old. Like 1 or 2 years ago. Oh my God, okay. Okay, so you will click on send, and you should be getting again that the status code is 200, which basically means that your request was successful. And we can see a huge JSON with plenty of books over here. Like, well, they're not plenty. There are just some books in there. Like, yeah. And they have different fields. For example, ID, name, type, available. Great. So if we go back to the docs over here, we will see how to add different query parameters to our to our API. I'm trying to, okay. So let's see. Get list of books, filter by fiction. So to filter by fiction, we use the books endpoint, and we will be saying that the type of my book needs to be fiction. So let's try that out. Oh, sorry, it's in here. So list of books, and then I'm going to type. Okay, ignore the typed in examples over there. So let's type in drama, for example. So I'm trying to bring all of the books that are of type drama. So I will send this. Oh, invalid value parameter for query type. Oh, must be fiction or not fiction. Okay. Yeah, so this error message is very specific because it's literally saying me like, okay, the type has to be like either fiction or non-fiction. So I will set this to fiction. Great. And this should give me like the different types of books that we have. So let's see if I can filter by ID by just typing like ID equal to 1. Let's see if that exists. That kind of exists. I mean, it was successful, but I'm seeing like all of them. Oh, so books question mark type equals is a syntax for every API, except would help to change the book. Okay, so if you're referring that if every API is like this kind of like format, kind of, but as we are using this books API, this is the format that this specific API uses, because there are plenty of other APIs out there that have like different formats. You know, like for example, in here I can be typing like, for example, food, and then the food will be like, I don't know, like dish, and then the dish will be like, I don't know, like salad. You know, like they vary a lot from API to API, so they're not always the same. But what stays the same is the question mark before the endpoint, before the query parameters. That in my case, the query parameter in here is ID, and its value has to be like equal to 1. Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and see other things that we can test out over here. Get list. This is no, not cool, not cool, not cool. Okay, this one. We're going to use this one that is called post register user, because to use our API, we will need an viewer token, which is the one that we will be using for authorization. So for this, I'm going to go ahead close this, then go to user, and then I'm going to click on post register user. So in here, it basically says API clients, which is the persons that are using like the API. So I will see what we need to use this endpoint. Let's see. Great. And if you can see and go to the body, because we are making a post request, you need to include the client name and the client email. So let's see if there is something stored in this variable. Yeah, so this is, you should be seeing like this exact same thing over here. And for example, in client name, I will type honeybee, and then let's see, add to, and I will select no environment selected, select or create one. Oh yeah, so before creating the variable, you will go ahead and click on this button over here on the right corner that says like no environment, and we will need to create a new one. So there's nothing. Okay, we will go ahead and create this. Yeah. Okay, so I will guide you through the steps that we will need to make a copy of this like demo thing, because this is like a public it is like a public postman, so we cannot actually like edit the things that someone like wrote in here. So we're just going to make a copy of this. So you're going to click on Control S, like if you were like saving the file, or like Command S if you are on Mac. So Control or Command S, and then just leave like default my workspace. You know, leave all like the defaults, or if you want to change the name, go ahead and do so, and then click on for collection. Yeah. And it should be loading now. Great. So there it is. So now I'm in my local thingy, and now I can select like the different environments, as you can see over here, and I can create new ones because this is like my, you know, my account, and I can do whatever I want in my account. Great. So let's go back to the user thing. So user, and then post register user. Let's go ahead to the body to add the emails and that stuff. We You could also like hard code the email over here. Okay, so mine is saying no environment still. Yeah, as you can see, mine also says like no environment. So let me know, everyone, if you click in here, you can actually like see these things over here. So in case I need to repeat myself on the procedure that we did to get into here. But yeah. So you will go ahead and click like, oh, sorry. So you will enter like a name. For example, I will write honeybee, and then I will click on add to, and I will select collection because I want that variable just to be like part of my collection. Great. So now we have our variable set, and our client name has the value of honeybee. And then client email, I will add like b mail, and then gmail.com, and again I will add it to collection again. So only getting option to create one. Oh, yeah. Don't worry, you don't have to create an environment. I don't have an environment set right now, so don't worry if you need like to create one. We are not using that right now. I did not see anything under option. So option. So you mean like when I was setting this variable, right? So let me erase this. Uh, Now I can't go back. Okay, I will type another one so I can see like exactly what you're seeing. I meant on the raw when I get a copy for the post. See anything on the raw? That might be because you are not logged in into the account. You might want to try again to do the fork process. Like go to the link that I sent and just click Control S and then go over to the options that it says like over there. Yeah. Okay, so now that we have set, I will set this value again. Honey bee. And then we already have a client email, so that's good. We will leave this on default. Headers, we don't need anything. Authorization, this should be default. I haven't like done anything over here. This should be like a default thing that you should be seeing over there. And params, I will leave them alone. Yeah, but in case that you want to add like a parameter, instead of adding it like directly on the URL, you can just type it over here, like for example type value 1. And if you can see, when I was editing this over here, it automatically wrote it for me over here, like instead of me typing like everything here. But we will not be needing this, so I will be erasing. Great. There we go. So click on send. And then you should be seeing something like this that says 201 created, that the new resource was created successfully, and you should be seeing your access token. So this is a token that we will be using when we make our requests from VS Code. So don't worry, like you don't have to save it right now. I mean, you can, because this token is valid for 7 days according to the API documentation. So you can save this like somewhere to use it if we have time today or tomorrow at the beginning of our next stream, like the part 2. So yeah, like you can store it on a notepad or something. And if you don't, you can always generate like a new user using this endpoint over here. So I see an error. Can you describe the error that you are seeing, please, so I can help? And to everyone, please tell me if someone actually managed to get over here. Me too. I am getting an error, and then we're seeing, oh, I think that email is already registered. Yeah, invalid or missing client email. Yeah, so that might be because you didn't wrote something on the client email. So make sure that your email is like inside here. Worked for me. Perfect. It's because it's already used. Yep, that might also be. Try changing it to see if it works. Change to another. Yeah, perfect. Thank you for the collaboration on the chat. Great. Yeah, has to be a different email. Definitely. Okay, glad to see that it worked. Great. So now let's go ahead and see what other things we can see in here. Great. So I think everyone is on the same page right now. That's good. I like to see that everyone is like going through the examples and testing everything out. So right now, where we are right now is that we already understand what an API is. So if I ask you like what is this or what is like this thing over here and what is this like over here, you can actually like answer me on these questions. And yeah, that is good. So you already know like the basic concepts about API, and you already know that Postman is like a tool where we can test like different API endpoints, and we already got the chance to test like some of them over here. So feel free to go through all of these like over here and just click send, like to see what it does, and like play around with the API and see like everything that there is to use. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to write the client email. Invalid. Oh, maybe. Ooh, yeah, missing name. That's true. Okay. So right now, okay, there's a question. So each request sends a JSON file to the server along with the parameters. Yeah, that's pretty much how it works. So when you want to post something, you usually do it through JSON. This will actually make much more sense when we see like the raw code on the Python code that we will be doing later on, and we will actually see like the raw information instead of just seeing like really nice on a dashboard. Works fine. Screen is laggy. Okay, I think I was not doing anything right now, but if it happens again, let me know, please. Okay, so now that we know like what Postman is, and we already have access to this cool API that is over here, you totally feel free to explore as much as you want. I won't be exploring all of the methods today because I want to show you more general things about APIs, so you just don't have like this small horizon of what this is. So far we just have to know that an API does, what an endpoint is, and how to test it on Postman. It will only work with servers that are public, right? Depends. So yeah, your first part is correct. Yeah, we already know that what an endpoint is and how to test it in Postman. Depending. Like for example, if I go ahead right now and look up for different APIs, which is something that I will do after I answer your question. Um, this API is public and everyone can have access to it. But for example, let's say OpenAI's API, for example, ChatGPT, that is not public. I mean, you can access it, but to gain access to it, you need to pay. So you must have like money on your account to access like the private API. And yeah, that will generate like your API key that you have to use because it is like you know binded with your tokens that you have on your account. Do you mind sharing the schedule of the beginners week? Yeah, definitely. It is over here. I will share with you. Okay, I think someone already shared. Wow, that was super fast. Okay, great. So let's go to our next stop. So I wanted to share with you more general things about APIs before actually going through the Python code. So you just don't stay with these examples. So there are plenty of other APIs out there. For example, GitHub API. And getting started, here it is. No, this is not it. I want the documentation. I think it's this one. No, definitely not. GitHub API docs REST. Oh, someone sent it. Okay. But I cannot copy paste that link. That's sad. Might be this one. I'm not seeing any links over here. Yeah, I want to access it. Um, I will copy paste what someone wrote on the chat. Thank you very much for this. So English and then rest. Let's see if that works. Nope. API version. Does that work? What? That's like super old. Okay, apparently it doesn't. Oh, GitHub, and then it has like docs over here, right? That worked. Yeah, this one. I was looking for this one. Perfect. So compared to this one, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is the docs of this? Yeah. So compared to this one, we can see like the endpoints, and we can also see like different methods, and it is like super simple to watch, right? So but when we actually go to like a real like working complex API, this is much more different. Okay, someone is spamming on Discord. I'm going to close that. Okay. So this is like super big documentation. I will make my screen bigger, and we will not be using this. But I just want you to see like how to actually like understand all of the things that are in here. So let's see a simple endpoint. Users emails. Great. So if you go ahead and check this, we see different things over here. I will make my screen bigger. So in here it says that we have our headers, and our headers will be of type string, and they have to be basically this. And then we have our body parameters, which are the ones that we already talked about. And they have to be either public or private, because we are using the visibility parameter. And then this is something that I forgot to explain earlier, but some of you might actually like understood this, that there are different like status codes on HTTP requests that determine like different types of errors or different types of success messages. So 200, if you remember, and we go back to our simple books API, when we fetch something that was like successful, we get like a 200, which means that everything is like correct, which is basically okay. And there are other different ones. And you might be seeing this 404 over here that has happened to everyone. Like when you search something online that doesn't exist, like the URL is wrong, you should be getting like 404 error, which means like the resource was not found. And there are like different types of status codes. These are just some, but they are much more. I mean, these are basically like the most common ones. And then we have an example of our request for the GitHub API, which is a method of type get, and this is the endpoint that we have to use. And then here is like how you will actually be running it in case you want to run it on terminal. Yeah. And if you can see in here, we have this authorization token. So this is something that you have to obtain from the GitHub API. And like a lot of APIs, what they do is that they have like this guide for users to generate like their own bearer tokens that have to be inputted over here. So that is the case for our endpoint. Like for the example of registering a user, this is the way of this API to publish like their different access tokens over here. So yeah, um, I think we are good to go to the Python script. I don't know if anyone has more questions, or you want me to talk about like another things about APIs. You can drop your questions or comments on the chat anytime. And yeah, I forgot to answer someone question. Someone at the beginning on this of the stream asked that what was like a tool to create APIs. So right now what we're doing is that we are using APIs, but we are not creating an API. So we are using one API that was created by someone else and is published on the internet. So to create like your own API, you can use different tools. This stream is not about creating an API. I might do one on another global hack week, because that is actually something very useful for hackathons. But just for you to know, to create an API, you can use Fast API, which is this one over here. And you can see like their docs over here. This is like super easy to run. It's very useful, Fast API. Or if you're using Python, you can also use Flask. That's another tool. So Flask is this one. Could you break down parts of an API? Yeah, definitely. I will show you real quick the definition that we use over here. So these are the different parts. We have request, we have receive, and we have response. So we make a request, we receive the request, and then we fetch the response. So those are like the three parts. And then more technical, we have our HTTP method, we have our URL, and we have, when we already send this, we get our response, and the response is in format JSON. So yeah, so I was mentioning, Flask is another tool that you can use to create your own APIs, which uses Python too. So Postman is used to access API. Yeah, that is correct. So let's imagine that I create like my own API using Flask. I will actually be able to test my API that I created on Postman. So that's why Postman is like super cool. Yeah. So now let's go ahead to the coding part. Uh yeah, let's go to that. So for new hackers that don't have like any coding tool installed, we will be using Visual Studio Code. So you just go ahead and search VS Code, download. And you should be clicking on this one that says download Visual Studio Code for Mac, Linux, and different operative systems that you might have, and just download the one that's suited for you. I already have it downloaded, so I won't be doing that today. But if you want to follow through this and you don't have like this same exact tool, then just go ahead and download this. We will be using Python, so make sure to have Python on your computer. Yeah. Hey, I am totally new in this Global Hack Week, and today is my first lesson or session, which I am attending. So, how beneficial it for me? Yeah, thank you for actually saying this. It would change your life. That's so nice. Yeah, so very glad to have you here. We are basically learning about making your very first API requests. We are kind of like at the half, more than the half of this stream. So this stream is like completely recorded, so it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel after I click on end stream. And we also have the schedule on the chat if you want to see like the different sessions that will be going on tomorrow and during the weekend. Great. So I already gave some time for you to download this. So I will close this up and let's go to now our BS code. So I will make this bigger and close all the thingies that I have over here. Great. So everyone go ahead and open their BS Code um, project. And I actually created a GitHub repo for you all. But I'm thinking if that is a smart move to give you the link of the repo and for you to clone it. But that depends if the chat is more like familiar with these concepts. So if you're not familiar with these concepts, like don't worry, I will leave the link for the GitHub URL for you to clone in case you are more experienced and you want to clone the GitHub repo. If you don't know what GitHub is or you have no idea like what I'm talking about, don't worry. You won't need this. And I will also be giving a workshop on GitHub later on during the weekend, so you can understand what I'm doing right now. Mm, we send you sign-in request. Yeah, I haven't received my request, so let's see. There we go. Great. So can you let me know on the chat if you have used GitHub before and already cloned a repository before? Just for me to know if there are people that actually know how to do that. Okay, I think just someone. Okay. So I'm seeing a Jess. I have. Oh, so all of these workshops are fully recorded and we can watch them later. Yep, definitely. Are all of them beginner friendly? I've never cloned your repository. Yeah, don't worry. This week we are doing beginners week. That's why I'm asking everyone if they are familiar with these concepts. Know about GitHub but haven't cloned a repo through VS Code. Yep, I have used it. Okay, so I will go ahead and do it step by step, super slow, so we can all do it. So I will send you a link. Give me a second just to send the link over on the chat. So I will send you this link, and you should all have access to that link. Yeah. So I will give a second. And once you are on that link, please let me know if you can see what I'm seeing. It should be public, so everyone should have access to this on their computers. And in case you've never used GitHub before, you can create an account. It should prompt you, like to create an account with GitHub. So yes, yes, yes. All right. So once you are on this URL that I sent, you should be seeing this big green button over here. So you're going to click on code. And then you're going to click on this tab over here that says local. So local, and then you should be seeing this long URL over here. Yeah, so you're going to click on copy URL to clipboard. I will give a second so everyone can watch this screen. So it's code, click on local tab, and then copy this link. Perfect. So once you copy that link, what we're basically going to do is to copy this repository onto VS Code. So we're going to go back to VS Code, and you should be seeing something pretty similar to this. Great. So on the start section, you should be seeing like different options over here that say like new file, open folder, clone Git repository. So this is the one that we want to use. We want to clone a Git repository. So you're going to click on that. And then in this search bar over here, you're going to copy paste the link that we copied before. So you paste it and then you just hit enter. And it should prompt you with your file manager asking you like where do you want to locate your project. So I will just locate it on downloads. So downloads, and then I'm going to create a new folder. And this new folder will be called MLH API. You can call it whatever you want. Don't worry. And then select as repository destination. And then it will ask you like, okay, would you like to open the clone repository? And I will say, yes, open. There we go. And then it will ask me, do you trust the authors of this file? And I will say, yeah, I trust the authors of this file. Okay. So someone's getting, it says no matching results. Make sure you copied the link like on the search bar and you did not click on like GitHub, like clone from GitHub. And let me know if it's like the same. Clone Git repo and just like copy paste the link over there. Yeah. So if someone managed to get all the way over here, please let me know on the chat. And in case you were not able to clone the repo, don't worry. You will not be needing this. This repo is just for you to see like the code that I will be doing during the live stream, and you can actually see like the updates that I'm doing. Okay, so someone managed to do that successfully. I'm glad. Yay. Okay. So if you are not able to clone the repo and open it like on VS Code, don't worry again. On the link that I sent, that is this one that you should all have access to. I will be coding things on the live stream and I will be uploading it into this link. So if I change something on my VS Code and I uploaded it, then you should be seeing the changes in here. Like if you go over, like for example, to the license, you will be able to see like the files and you can navigate through them like very easily. Okay, my throat is kind of sore because it's cold and I'm speaking like kind of loud. So I will try to lower my voice because I speak kind of loud. I got where you are, but what does git ignore mean? So we are not going to use that file, but thank you for your question. Git ignore basically means that all of the files of these types won't be uploaded to the GitHub repository. If you have a problem, go to the link and download the zip file. Thank you very much for your support. That is totally true. You should clone it from terminal. I mean, you can. That is for more advanced hackers. So, yeah, thank you for the heads up there too. So, in case you were not able to clone the repo, you can just go ahead and open up like a new window on your VS Code, like a new window. And then just go ahead and click on like open folder. And then on the open folder thing, like just create a new folder and open like that folder. So let's imagine that I just created like this folder. So just click on your folder that you created and then click on select folder, and that should open up like the folder. But for the ones that did not clone the repo, you shouldn't be seeing like anything over here. Like it should be empty, but that is totally fine. It's requiring GitHub sign in. Yeah. Yeah. So you have to sign in through GitHub and just like continue from there. So where to sign in? Okay, so super fast. You're going to go to the account thingy over here. That's like a little person. And then you will be seeing like different options. In my case, I'm seeing like my username because I am already signed in. But for your case, you should be seeing um like sign into GitHub or something pretty similar. Yeah. Your GitHub has a contribution gap and all of those points and trophies. It looks cool. How did you do it? So that's a README file. Um, I will be giving a stream on how to use GitHub, which is the tool that I just presented to you. I will share the schedule of that stream at the end of this one. So let's just continue so we don't get behind. Don't worry if you don't know what GitHub is. Don't worry if you were not able to clone the repo. You won't need to do that. I'm just doing that so you can actually see like the changes that I'm making on the URL that I send. So for example, I will create a new file that will be called app.py because we want it to be of type Python. So the Python extension is .py. Great. So for this code test, we will be using a library that is called requests. So we're going to import that library that is called requests. Request library might not be installed. Oh, sorry. So to install this library, you're going to click on terminal and then new terminal. So on your upper bar, you should go ahead and click on terminal and then new terminal. There we go. And now over here, we will type pip install requests. I will send this on the chat. Great. So click on send. And oh no, you may have installed Python packages into your global. Well, I will create a new one. Just some context on this. For some of you who are already a bit familiarized with Python, Python basically uses these virtual environments that are kind of like spaces on Python for you to store like the different libraries that you installed. And instead of having like all of your libraries in the same like Python environment, what Python does is that you can create like different environments depending on like the different projects that you have. So you don't actually like install it globally. In my case, I installed it globally right now because I didn't select or created like a virtual environment. But yeah, don't worry if you are just a beginner getting into programming. It is something totally different. So once that we installed the requests library, we are able to use it. So before we start doing everything and all of our methods, we have to set up our base URL. So if we go back to our to our API over here, remember that we set a variable that was called base URL. So guess what? We will now be setting this variable on my on our Python script. So you're going to go ahead and click and copy paste the base URL over here. So you're going to create a variable that will be called base URL, and it will basically, it will be a string. There we go. Mine is still not recognizing requests. So I might be assuming that is because of your virtual environment thing that I mentioned earlier. So for that, just hover over requests, and I'm assuming you're getting like the request with like a yellow zigzag underline. If that is your case, hover over requests and you should be seeing like select a different Python interpreter. Try changing between different interpreters and see if that works. Or just like go into the lower section over here and like select a different interpreter. Should we install Python packages through CMD before doing that? You can install them through this integrated terminal, and you should be good. And if you mean like installing the whole Python thing, yeah, you need to download Python language, yeah, from the internet. Perfect. So now that we already set up our URL, then we are good to creating our first method. So our first one, we will call it the get status. If you remember, this is the simplest endpoint that was out there on our requests, on our book API. So to do this, we're going to create our method, and to create a method in Python, we use def and then the name of our function. So the name of our function will be called get status. And we add this parenthesis. And in my case, when you create a function, you can pass on, like different parameters. In my case, this will be empty because the get status endpoint doesn't need any parameters. So yeah, and then like the 2 points to define my function, and I'm going to create a variable that will be my response. So the response that I will get from this API request will be stored in this variable. So response will be equal to the requests library, because we want to use the requests library to use like the methods. So if we can see here on the like small definition of the requests library, we see that to use their library, we have to do like the object of requests and then dot get or any HTTP method that we want, and then the URL. So let's go ahead and do that. So requests and then dot, and then in here we can see like the different examples and the different HTTP methods that are out there. So the first the one that we will be using is get, because our get status endpoint is a get method. So get, and then on the parentheses, I'm going to pass on the base URL because this is the endpoint that I will be using. So base URL, and then I want to add the rest of the endpoint. So I don't remember what was the rest of the endpoint. So I'm going to go back and look at the documentation. So let's see. Status, get status. Yeah, so it's a line status. Okay, simple as that. So I will type line and then status. Perfect. So now that we define our base URL, we are going to do an if-else switch in order to check if the response was successful or if it wasn't. So we're going to do if response, and then we're going to use again another method. So dot, and when you type the dot, you will be seeing like different options. So the option that we're going to use is status code. So do you remember when I was mentioning, like, for example, 200 is like successful and like 404 is like not found? So for the status code, we want to make sure that the status code of my response is equal to 200. Why? Because it will mean that my response was successful. So in case my response is equal to 200, then I will print that the get response was successful. So if it is successful, then it means that I can actually print like the response. So to print our response, we will type response and then .json. Why? Because we want to get the response in a JSON format. Great. So, and on the other case that this is not successful, then I'm going to do else. And then I'm going to print the error message. So to print the error message, we're basically going to do response, and then we're going to do dot and then status code. Why? Because this will basically tell us the status code, which will give us like more information about my error. And then I'm going to pass on the response .json to see what the error is about. Great. So we should be good to go with this example to run it. So yeah, to do that, I'm going to create the main method so we can actually run this example. So to create that, we will do name. Yeah, if you have any questions or you got stuck like somewhere, you can feel free to ask any questions in the chat. So this will be main. I think it was. I actually forgetting how to type on like the main function in Python. So let's hope this is correct. I mean, it's not getting any errors, so I'm assuming it's correct. And then on my main method, I'm going to run the get status one. So I'm going to call that function. Perfect. So this is all. And before I run this code, I'm going to go ahead and publish it so everyone can see it through the link I sent. So to import the requests API, you're going to just type at the beginning import requests, and to install it, it's pip import requests, which I sent over on the chat, which is this one. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I already published this code over on the GitHub. Let's just give it a while for it to update. Great. So now if you go back to the link that I shared on GitHub, that is this one, and you hit on refresh, you should be seeing the new file that I created, which is app.py. And if you click on that, you should be seeing like every bit of code that I was typing in case you just want to like copy paste the whole thing into your code editor. Yeah. So let me go back to this. Okay. Great. So we are going to run this now. We are just making HTTP requests using Python, right? The same thing we did with Postman, just with Python this time. Yep, that is totally correct. We are doing exactly the same thing that we were doing on Postman, but this time we are coding like with Python language. Yeah. So let's go ahead and run this code. And we should be seeing the output over here. It's taking a while, or did I not? Oh, I didn't click. Okay, so it's running now. Great. So we are seeing our response in here that says status okay. So if you are able to run the code, you should be seeing this status okay thing on your screen, which means that you are good to go and that your method like is working. Great. Glad to see that someone made it work. Let me know if you're stuck somewhere or if you already managed to do it. That's super cool. So, wow, I created my first API request. Yeah, I'm glad you managed to got an error. Okay, share it in the chat and we will help you. It works perfect with requests.get. So can you share with us the error that you get when you hover over requests.get error? Perfect. So we are almost ready to wrap up, and I owe you some things that I mentioned that I was gonna mention at the end of the stream. So first of all, tomorrow, let me go back to the schedule. So tomorrow I will be giving, this is the first part of the stream, and tomorrow I will be giving the second part, which is over here. So the second part will be at 9 p.m. CST. You can see the schedule over there. Yeah. And I will also be sending like a reminder on the GitHub on the Discord for you to join. So you don't want to miss the second part, because on this second part we will actually be finishing like our VS Code code, and we will be migrating this code into a web app. So you will actually be able to see this in like a really nice and cute dashboard, and you will be able to publish that application to the web. So that's like super cool. Like I know right now I was going like a very slow and like explaining things like super descriptive, but that's because I really wanted you to understand like everything about APIs and like the super beginner stuff that you want to know before actually like going through the code. Like today, for example, I could have just begin like typing code and explaining you like these examples, but it is better like when you actually understand what you're coding. So if you see this code, you will now be able to know what the response is and what this 200 means, or what does a dot get method means, and things like that. So that's cool. Okay, so I'm seeing the error here: response equal request dot get base URL equal. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, you want to use a plus sign instead of the equal sign. So for your case, you have this. So instead of having this equal sign, that I'm assuming you are having it that way, you want to change it to a plus sign, because a plus sign means that you are concatenating. So that means that the result of this will be basically like this, and then like this slash status. So that means to concatenate. Yeah, exactly like that. Perfect. Glad to know that it works. Great. So what was I missing to mention? I was going to mention something else. Oh yeah, right. So I already uploaded this on the GitHub with to the link that I shared. I will share this again in case you want to see the code. Tomorrow I will be working on the same code repository. So everything that I will be typing on my VS Code will be stored on this link for you to access during any time of the live session of tomorrow. And also for some of you that were curious about GitHub and how it works, I'm going to be having a workshop about GitHub basics. In case you want to have like this super awesome profile and you want to build like your own, community inside of GitHub. I'm going to be explaining like how to build, awesome things in here, and just understand like what GitHub is. And the time for that, I think it is on day 4. Yeah, it's this one. What is GitHub? It will be on January 13 at 2 p.m. CST. Is this one? What is GitHub? But yeah, so last thoughts on our slide deck for us to give closer to this. So for the next session, we are going to do plenty of things. So there are plenty of things that we have to finish for tomorrow. So for tomorrow, we will finish our Python script. So I won't be giving like all of the slides presentation and talk about APIs. I'm just going to go directly to the code, and in case hackers have questions, I will answer them on the chat. And we will, once we finish the script code of Python, we will migrate it into another script so we can create like a nice web app on Streamlit. So in case you don't know what Streamlit is, go ahead and search it on Google, and you will see that it is a super cool tool that we will be learning to use tomorrow as an aid for our Python script. Yeah, thank you so much for everyone for being here. Will we be learning how to create API too? No, sadly we won't, because the stream is focused on creating your requests, your first API requests. But I will definitely take this into consideration for my future live streams for creating an API, because that is something really helpful too. Yeah, thanks for all of your great efforts, Jocelyn. That's awesome. I'm very glad everyone joined. And yeah, I will be on this second part tomorrow, so don't forget to log in. And if you have any questions, you can always ping me on Discord if you want more answers. But yeah, thank you everyone, and I will be seeing you all tomorrow. Bye.
Solo. Solo on the beat.